And on social media, your name comes up.
So basically, I started acting. I was in elementary school, 12 years old.
I was grateful every day that I was on set. Every day on set is a good day, man.
There's a certain energy that you kind of just want to be around them.
We can talk about him in a second as well.
I'm not a sports guy. I don't even know how football is played.
Despite the fact that I left the show for my own reasons, and we can talk about that if you like.
So tell me, what's next for you? So welcome to another one of The Grass is Greener. I am the green part of The Grass is Greener. I'm Paul Greene, and my guests today are Ryan and Brian, who started a superfood company called Living Prana, and one of the things that they've sort of hacked into is breakfast. But what's special about both of them is they share these stories along their way, not only how they created the company, but even really what I found really intriguing was their personal experience with weight loss and mold poisoning. So Ryan had almost died from mold toxicity, and Brian lost 80 pounds. And you look at him, he's a young, fit guy. So he shares his process in this video and in our conversation. So I think you're really going to like it. So this episode is sponsored by Living Prana. You can check right in the show description, and you can order your first batch of the delicious pancake mix, and you can use my code. And from that code, you'll be able to get a discount, and then you can get it delivered to your house. If you want, you can get a subscription. I highly recommend it. What's cool about Living Prana is that, like, I have a 1-year-old, so we can take this mix and put some blueberries in it and serve it to him either as a breakfast sort of sweet thing, and it has all the adaptogenics in it, some herbs, some mushrooms in the brain food. And what's really special is my son, I can feed him that for breakfast, but I can also, if I wanted to, put cheese in it and make it a savory kind of biscuit for him. And I know he's just getting superfoods and medicine. So, and he loves it. He craves it. So that is really super cool. So check that out. It's always fun to have something super rich and super nutrient dense to crack into in your house as just like in a powder form that you can just add water to if you wanted to, just to get some nutrients and some functional medicinal herbs and mushrooms. So this episode is sponsored by them from Living Prana, but also this episode is brought to you by Freedom Alchemist. Now, Freedom Alchemist is a platform. It's a community that my partner Kate and I have been developing for almost 5 years. We've had over 1,000 people go through it, and we have probably that many testimonials. It's been a really just incredible journey of discovery and mind, body, and connection. So I have a history from in fitness and nutrition, and I was a Men's Health cover model for, I guess it would have been the late part of the 90s and into I think I have 8 covers for fitness magazines. So I really approached fitness from that side where you know, for vanity. But I was also always, I read a book called Fit for Life way back, which is something Tony Robbins was a part of. And this was in 1992, I read Fit for Life. And that sort of started my health journey, I was doing ice baths, though, now that I think about it, when I was like 15, 16, all for vanity, all to have a 6-pack abs. But along the journey, my dad got sick from ALS and passed away. And during that time, we had to really learn, and we went on this whole journey of understanding neurological disorders and understanding detox pathways. And, we did everything with my dad: coffee enemas, ozone, wheatgrass every day. It was, and he laid on a bed of nails, the little Shakti things, the Shakti mats. And my dad was only, we were doing chelation and colonics and you name it. Stem cell therapy replacement. We took out some of my dad's healthy stem cells and put it right into his spine, and they'd had some success with that. But 9 years ago, my dad passed away, and that put me on this other path of longevity and detoxification. And then I've just, for movies, I'm an actor. I have to stay in shape and be ready to take off my shirt at any moment. So I've developed some techniques and practices to staying fit and feeling good and having my brain work really well for memorizing tons of scripts. And so that's sort of my journey. I'm also studying for my functional medicine degree at IIN, which is the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And so I'm about halfway through that curriculum at the moment. This is 2023. I guess we're in February 2023. And Kate, so that's me. So I handle the body stuff. And then Kate is a Tony Robbins trained strategic intervention coach. And she also has her master's in NLP. And what NLP is if you haven't heard of it, it's neuro-linguistic programming. And it deals with that subconscious stuff that's kind of running your show behind the scenes, and helps people identify sabotage mechanisms and triggers, and helps people really move through them in a powerful way by creating new neural pathways through some really cool suggestive questioning. It's a really profound thing. NLP is what makes Tony Robbins very efficient at change work. So together, and Kate and I, we also throughout, we've been together 8 years, and along the way, we've really discovered some incredible teachers. I worked personally with a guy named David Data, who wrote a book called The Way of the Superior Man, and it really explains masculine, feminine polarity. So we bring that work into the third leg of our courses. And we also introduce folks to one of my other teachers, who wrote a book called The 5 Love Languages. And it really in understanding your partner's love language. So and then we have a couple other teachers, Kathy Martino, who lived with me for 3 years and was my teacher for about 6 years, her teacher was at the foundation of a lot of some of the new ways of thinking along, in Los Angeles, with some of in the 70s, with some of the, I guess it would be psychology and people who would be studying Freud and Nietzsche and these guys. And so her teacher, Carl Jung mostly, her teacher, Robert, was best friends with the guy Werner Erhard, who started Landmark. At the time it was called Est. And Kate and I have spent several years learning inside of Landmark some of the strategies for designing a life that really works, and some of the habits that can stop you from having what you want, and even really knowing what you want and getting connected to your why. So Kate and I put together a course that covers body, mind, and relationships. And right now there's a program in there called Best You Breakthrough, which is sort of our entry point. And then there's a membership, and we also have a lot of other really unique programs. So check out Freedom Alchemist. They're sponsoring this podcast as well. I'm really passionate about that work. Just go to the freedom-alchemist.com and read some of the testimonials on there. Some of them make my toes curl. Like one of our guests, one of our students, I guess we could call her, is over, she's lost over 100 pounds, and she's 77. And it's not just that. She didn't lose it. She released it, so she doesn't have to go find it again. I'm trying to see if I can find her testimony and read it for you, because it is awesome. I'll just grab another one here. Before I had everything to prove, what people thought of me had a huge place in my life. I needed to attract attention, to worry about the future, and to be afraid of my life. I have found a large family of unique and lifelong friendships in the Freedom Portal. That's what we call our community. The day I decided to join this tribe was probably the best decision of my life. My life today is the beginning of the life that I've always dreamed of. Today, I love life. I enjoy every moment. And for the first time in my life, I can say that thanks to Kate and Paul, I gave myself the greatest gift I could give myself. I found my place in this world. So I don't care. Compared to like a good movie review, nothing quite compares to hearing that somebody found their place in this world. And so if you go to the website, you'll see we have a large swath of testimonials here. So Neva is one of our students who's lost over 100 pounds and released over 100 pounds. And her story is just, is just incredible. So it's all there on freedom-alchemist.com. You can check that out. So there's actually testimonials inside the body, inside the mind, and also reestablishing connection and helping people give up their right to be right a little bit when it comes to relationships. So let's get back to Living Prana and this episode of The Grass is Greener. I'm so excited for you to check it out. Stay through all the way to the end. The stories that these guys share, they do have the power to transform your life if you allow yourself to sort of take the tools and use them. And I highly recommend checking out the pancake mix. There's a code that you can use from my name to get a discount, and that also tells them that you found it through me. So that's cool. That's a way we support the podcast. And what else? That's it. Enjoy. Please share and like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you could go on Apple iTunes for me, if you have the time, and just find the podcast and give it a review, that is helpful too. All right. Thanks so much. We'll see you on the other side. Bye. Thank you both for coming.
Of course.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
This is called The Grass is Greener because there's one of my favorite sayings is the grass is greener where you water it. Instead of, we're always trying to get to where the grass is greener on the other side. But when I heard that phrase, like, I want to interview people that nurture the things that they love. And that's a part of the grass is greener where you water it. And like in a relationship and with your loving partner, like I'm in a committed relationship, is like that, the more I nurture where my own lawn, that's where the grass is greener, not, somewhere else. And so that's sort of the premise of this podcast is interviewing people that are up to cool things. Like you guys both have started this superfood company, and your stories, the stories are really interesting of who you gentlemen are as together, and how what I want to get into is how you guys met. But you are and what synergy and what magic brought you both together. But if you could take a minute and just introduce yourselves, and just like a fun little background we'll start with you, Brian, just to who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll take it from there. And then after Ryan, then we'll take it from there. So just tell me who you are.
Well, thank you. Good morning. Brian Murphy, CEO and co-founder of Living Prana. That's the hat that I'm currently wearing, one of many. Born and raised New Jersey, East Coast guy. Spent some time in Florida, but largely have been on the West Coast and adjacent ever since. Currently living in Hawaii, calling Maui home. I moved out there when COVID hit and made a massive shift in my life. And I'd say, who am I? I am a man who embraces change, that loves growth, constantly seeking ways to improve and get the most out of my life, and nurture and deepen relationships. Finding ways at which I can help heal people, and now it's through food. And so that's been a large of my calling in my life, and here we are to tell the story. Yeah,
well, I'm excited to learn a little bit more about, like, I've obviously eaten these and enjoyed these for breakfast and lunch. And so I know this is my first time meeting you, Brian.
First time meeting, yep.
But Ryan and I go back. When did we first meet? If you were to guess?
I think it was at a festival, Lightning in a Bottle.
Oh,
you rolled up onto my table with a vertebrae out from an ill-fated adjustment somebody else had given you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a stubborn vertebrae.
It was.
And it wouldn't go. I remember that. That's almost 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And then you've bounced in and around our lives.
Yeah.
Many different ways. Brian's a very talented body worker as well as astrologer. And I remember you making these cakes and these things at Gunar's and at Burning Man and along the journey. So it's so cool to see this product in its packaged form, because along the journey, there's been so many times when it was getting close, or you're like, this is happening, and so I'm so excited to actually see it like this. So just give us a little bit of background on you, and how you sort of. I didn't even know that you were on Young and the Restless. Days of Our Lives.
Days of Our Lives.
How long were you on it?
For almost 4 years.
Really? Do you know Rebecca Budding?
I don't recall.
No, she was just in the movie I did, and she was on there as well as just a lot of the people that I do these Christmas movies have had a stint on Days or on Young and the Restless.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I didn't know that until I like read this about you, that you did that. Like, and that's why you came to LA?
Yeah, I originally moved here as an actor.
From
Lincoln, Nebraska, born and raised. Little time in Australia, Kansas City, and then landed here. It was on my way to New York and pivoted last minute to Los Angeles.
And what year was that?
That was 1999. Got to do the turn of the century in Los Angeles.
Right when the Y2K and everything was freaking out that the world was ending. It feels like every decade someone needs to find something to like lose their minds over. Like whether it's the right. It's like how do we divide each other, and how do we like completely lose ourselves and freak out every decade?
Yeah.
Like every turn of 10 years, it's like
there's a consistency there. You're right. You can date that all the way back, at least in our time on the planet. That's true. 80s, 90s,
right?
Y2K, all of it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
There's a reference point there, I'm sure.
I'm sure there is. There's probably an astrological clock to it all too. These cycles of when sabotage is almost right. We're we sabotaging ourselves and then like to tear it down to rebuild something better. Sometimes it seems like.
I think that's a fair statement. Consciousness needing that leverage point of resistance to really push forward into its next epoch.
Yeah.
So I think there's astrology there, and can just date it on. I like the numbers too, though. The decade to decade to decade, how this has happened again and again to push us forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so to finish it, I was born and raised in Lincoln, Nebraska, and came out here as an actor, and then found my way from the dramatic arts to the healing arts during my Saturn return, which is an astrological transit that is a major pivot.
Talk about the Saturn return for a minute. Like, I know we're probably gonna have a hard time keeping this relatively short because there's so many interesting little like rabbit holes, and the Saturn return it really affects everybody. And it's one of those things that until you hear about it, you have no idea what it is.
Right.
But it would be so helpful to know it when you're in one. Or I didn't. So can you explain what Saturn return is a little bit?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And certainly that was where I found astrology, because my life had done such a radical breakdown moment in my life in that dark night. And it gave me an objective lens on what was happening, astrology in general. And so the Saturn return is just this major moment where Saturn, on its 28.5-year cycle around the sun, comes back to where it was when you were born. And that process brings that archetype of Saturn, which is the authoritarian, the disciplinarian, the kind of rigid structure. But its function is really authentic expression. It really wants us to be authentic. And so when we live out of condition or societal manipulation and impressions that we take on as our own, when in truth who we are is not informed externally, right? But we take on these impressions. And so Saturn basically says, if it's not you, it's going to get stripped away. And if it's ego, it's going to get broken down. And so you have to start looking at yourself and beginning to recognize there's more to life than what we were told we are, and whatever, we can use it. Look at culture and how culture informs how much we perceive in ourselves, and all the, let's say, the advertising. You need more of this to feel better, and this and that. And so the idea that Saturn brings is, no, you are your own authority, and now you have to step into it, whether you like it or not. So lifestyle choices that might deviate from that tend to be brought to the surface for examination, like partying. A lot of us begin to realize that's not necessarily a lifetime experience, but maybe my youth, and now I'm an adult and I have to look at things a little more responsibly, which is also Saturn's kind of big function, is being responsible in life. And so you start taking a look at things you didn't look at before.
Does everybody experience that, no matter what, whether they know it or not? Like, did you go through a pretty hefty one?
Absolutely did. Yeah.
That wasn't your Hawaii. That was another time.
No, that was well before. It was actually setting me up for a moment of. It was a career transition for me, but starting to see where the alignment of my beliefs, my personal desires, also how they were lining up with my career and where I was spending my time.
Yeah.
And there were some big things that were stripped away from me in that time, of which I, in the moment of my late 20s, did everything I could to hold on to them, because I didn't realize, I didn't have the knowledge to know what was going on.
Right.
In hindsight, it makes for like beautiful material to look back and study and see.
Yeah.
In the moment, it was very jarring.
Right.
And big growth moment, and around relationships too. So I find it was a very pivotal moment for me.
I'm sure a lot of people experience like breakups during that time, or like career changes, or just huge identity like I know I did as well. I went through a massive one in that time, but I wish somebody had kind of told me that I was going through that at the time. It would be kind of helpful to understand like that you're actually, this is a thing, not just like a crisis, like a early midlife crisis, I guess, or whatever.
Totally.
Quarter life crisis. John Mayer song, A Quarter Life Crisis.
That's perfect. Yeah, it does. It hits it, right around 27 to 30 is the range that we really kind of have that process of having to re-examine everything and like the different elements of career and relationships and who we believe ourselves to be, and then we start taking authority back. It's where the 30s, and it's another decade shift, right? Where the 30s become this real, I think, window where our responsibility comes online for ourselves as an adult. I think adulthood tends to get a little bit prolonged, or should I say adolescence gets prolonged in this culture. So that's something that we have to make choices that are consistent with truth in ways we never necessarily evaluated it previously. Yeah, it's a powerful time, and it's uncomfortable because we cling to what we are attached to, or how we perceive ourselves.
And it comes around again, right? And 28 years later,
correct?
Right, you get another shot at
it.
Trying to hold on to your identity, or do you surrender and actually create yourself new again? It's such a remarkable thing in astrology to understand, to look at that, and to I think that's one of the more fascinating components for me, is that Saturn return thing. And it's when I went in India for a motorcycle trip, I was there for a month over the Himalayas, and I was in my Saturn phase in the Ayurvedic chart, or in the Eastern chart. Eastern chart.
You got it, yeah.
And that was it made so much sense, because during that phase I was so into spiritual things and into learning and discovering and I was so obsessed with learning and deepening that side. And then and that was right at the end of my Saturn return when I got back from India, and it was that's when I went to Burning Man the first time.
Wow.
And there was a lot of transition and a lot of really cool things, but it was not comfortable.
Yeah. We did it well to go to India and then Burning Man. Those are two.
Yeah, it was a transformational year.
Levers,
yeah, big, and very, very big. And you were in finance before.
I was in finance, yeah. So most of my career, I started as an investment banker. I actually consider myself a reformed investment banker at this point in time.
In New York or elsewhere?
In Florida, actually, South Florida, working with small entrepreneurial family-owned businesses that were either often generationally trying to help with succession planning, and if the founders were looking to retire, and do we pass this on to the kids, or what does the business really need to grow? A lot of it was, as founders, we took the business as far as we can, and then how do we find the resources to then take the business to the next level? So I got some really intimate relationships with founders that have built some really amazing businesses.
Wow.
In the time. Yeah, it was pretty early in my career.
And then what was the big shift for you when you said you were watching, you were listening to a podcast? How long ago was that when you had the big shift where you had to wake up and you're like, okay, I need to when was that?
The aha moment was in summer of 2019. So I had forced some time growing up in New Jersey and growing up around right outside of New York City. Most of my friends' parents worked on Wall Street. Everybody really, this affluent families, everybody had whatever they really needed at their disposal.
Yeah.
And I lived in the smallest house in a really affluent town. And my mom was a teacher. My stepdad had sold a restaurant, but kind of didn't really have much meaningful income. So put me in this place of where I saw that driving for that last dollar was the way to succeed in life. And that really created the path for me to then pursue investment banking. It was finance was all around the cloth of what happens in and around New York. And so I did that for years, and felt this really big disconnect between me, my personal satisfaction, and the impact I'm leaving on the world and the work that I was doing. I was doing really well professionally, but I didn't feel like I was making a true impact. And so at the time, I'd done investment banking, I worked in the private equity world, worked on some really cool businesses, a lot of work in healthcare, so helping people get better, mostly through surgery and specialty healthcare. But it still didn't really feel fulfilling for me. So here I am, summer of 2019, and I think it was the first episode of My First Million that I listened to. And it was in there with the founder of Native, the deodorant company, Moiz Ali. and effectively telling the story about how he built Native on his dining room table, totally bootstrapped. At the end of 2 years, he sold it to Procter & Gamble, but effectively disrupted an industry that was poisoning people with its ingredients. And he just said, I'm going to put an end to this. I think Tom's was really the only kind of natural brand at the time. And he had this moment standing in line buying the deodorant of like, this doesn't work. I can't believe we all put this in our bodies. And I'm going to fix this. So that connective point for me, talk about random shower thoughts, but I was listening to it in the shower.
You were listening to the podcast in the shower?
In the shower, okay. Yeah. And I was like, this is it. This is the time. I can no longer continue to be in my role in finance. Wow. And I'm now sharing this with the world because for a very long time, it was very private. I spent the next 4.5 months planning my escape. And that was for a couple of reasons. Largely, I wanted to leave my team at the time. I was the head of mergers and acquisitions and strategy for a regional subsidiary of United Healthcare. I wanted to leave my team in a really good way, the company in a really good way. And so take that time to transition it and also plan my escape. And what am I going to do? What am I going to do now as an entrepreneur? And how am I going to use my life experiences to go ahead and put together something that's going to make a difference? So that started it. That was the seed that planted. A couple months later, I found myself in Mexico, in Tulum, at a retreat, and had my first Temazcal and first sweat lodge experience.
I was going to ask if plant medicine had, what role plant medicine had in both of your sort of journey towards this, like, because it usually plays some role in most people's life, not just in our circle of friends, but like when someone. Not always, but it's. I'm glad you're getting to this. So Tulum is where you went to like a meditation retreat. It
was called Reintegration. It actually was post burn. It was at Habitas, and I've never been to Burning Man, but I was at this point. I was with a friend in Santa Monica at the time where I was living, and I said, I'm done taking these vacations where I'm just going to sit on a beach, drink alcohol and sit in the sun. I want something that's going to be more spiritually nourishing for myself. And within 5 minutes, an email for this retreat at Habitas popped up. And I booked it sight unseen, not knowing anything else. Like I knew who the facilitator was. Yeah. No agenda or anything else. That I'm going, and I'm just going to come from a place of yes. And that started this place of where I was removing any sort of self-inflicted resistance to the universe's path for me. And showed up there. The facilitator was Bobby Klein, incredibly amazing human. First really deep dive for me into yoga, into meditation. Actually had my first astral projection in a workshop with him, which was really wild. And then there were some things that were totally simple yet really profound. Mm-hmm. Questions like, what is the lie that you tell yourself every day, or we tell ourselves every day? And forced to look inside and see, well, then unwind that into what is the truth of the statement. And so some of these like seemingly menial exercises became really profound.
What was the lie that you were telling yourself every day?
That I'm not good enough and that money defines my success.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What about you?
I wasn't in the exercise, but what
but not that exercise, but what's your ongoing lie that you tell yourself that's not true?
That I don't have enough time.
Right.
Yeah. That I let time dictate my freedom.
That don't have enough time.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, I'm trying to think what my lie is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's mine's a time thing too, because I have so many things I want to do that it's really just the structure of my time. But it's a lie. I got to think about that. Before the end of this, I'll share my because there's. I mean, we all kind of lie to ourselves, but that's so. Right. So then, what's the truth then that you replace that with? Like
the truth that I replaced it with,
right? If that's the lie,
that I am good enough, and that my life experiences are worthy of sharing with the world. Got it. And that is what came out of this, of disassociating me, identifying myself as my ability to run through a wall to chase the last dollar as a symbol of who I am as a human. Versus more of my world experiences, my life experiences, and how do I translate that through storytelling experiences and building businesses to help make an impact on people's lives. And so I left that retreat really inspired. The Temazcal, there was no plant medicine there. It was sober, just sweat lodge. But in that experience, shed a lot of self-limiting beliefs. And that is where like more of this cleansing and opening space to receive and see that the experiences I'd had, things that I've gone through, we'll talk about the weight loss in a little bit, but that was a big one.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to.
Literally, pun intended, that was a big one.
And I can't wait. That's a pun intended as well.
Wow, you guys are killing it right
now. And so with that, clearing space to then feel into like, okay, where's the medicine I'm going to share with the world? And started to see it was something more tangible with personal well-being. Like I said, I was working in healthcare at the time, which felt good about people healing, but it was episodic in nature. It's surgery.
Right. Right.
Important part of the healthcare system.
But not acute. Like it's dealing with the symptom, not the.
Exactly. Very
the
reactive.
cause.
And so me wanting to get more involved in where am I going to develop something, a solution that's going to help people proactively manage their well-being every single day.
Yeah.
I had no idea when I was in Tulum that it was going to be pancakes.
Right. And that's 2019?
That was 2019, end of 2019.
Was he already, because by then you were already, like you've been working on this kind of versions of this for years, right?
Yeah. So 2017, camping at Burning Man, you were on set, but Katie was there, among other, members of our community. And that's where Pancakes were conceived, was at Burning Man. And Brain Cakes, shortly, probably right around that timeline, were my off-ramp from coffee and getting into a brain stimulus that didn't require caffeine. And
so you got off coffee.
I did. I wanted an activation that didn't have me on caffeine for reasons that are multiple, but I could get into all of them. But the basic awareness I had is that I was more or less shortchanging my creative capacity with caffeine. When I thought I was kicking it into a gear, there's a book called Why We Sleep. I don't know if you're familiar with it. But
I remember you telling me about this book, though.
Probably did, yeah. And so the takeaway, at least relevant to caffeine, is how it functions in the neurochemistry.
I'm nervous to hear this because I like my coffee, but I know you're right. I know there's problems. When I have caffeine, it actually, I feel like my brain kind of shrinks, like especially on set if I'm trying to remember lines. I can't have coffee and then go try to do a big scene. There's no way.
Yeah.
And
I'll give you the neurochemistry as I understand it. And I'm not a scientist, but I did, really devour this book. And what I took away is that caffeine as a chemical occupies our adenosine receptors, which is the same receptor that melatonin will reside or be released into, and then we'll feel tired. So it bumps us over that tiredness. But what it does to the thought process, as I understood it from a diagram they have in the book, which is they administer to spiders 4 different substances: caffeine, cannabis, LSD, and cocaine. And the display of the webs these spiders weave after these substances are introduced to their system, of all of them, caffeine was the most fragmented, like broken glass. It was just, there was no synastry or symmetry to it whatsoever. Geometry. Exactly, exact opposite. And I thought about it as a writer with the animal totem associated with writers is the spider. We're weaving the words of the world, right, is the idea behind it. And so I associated that, and I thought, wow, how much did I believe caffeine was necessary when in fact it was a detriment to my creative process? So then went to nootropics and understanding different adaptogens and superfoods that could literally give me what I really thought I was getting or needed from caffeine, but without that spike and then loss of energy as well. Yeah.
And so in the Brain Cakes, what are some of the nootropics and some of the things that will help people replace caffeine? If I never thought of these as like, who would think of pancakes as replacing your morning coffee, or at least the function of what caffeine does?
Yeah.
But what are some of the activated superfoods in the Brain Cakes for that?
Yeah, so there's a few that we can point to as far as the mind's function, focus, concentration, memory enhancement. You've got lion's mane, which is a mushroom that has that cognitive benefit, and there's a lot of studies to support that statement.
Yeah.
Then you've got Bacopa monieri, which is this Brahmi herb, along with gotu kola. These are both adaptogens, which basically give us a relaxation in our nervous system. So you talk about memorizing lines and wanting to have that level of presence, as all, actors do. It's this quality of, wow, I'm relaxed, I'm present, I'm taking this in, I'm literally storing the information in a way that I can recall it with greater comfort and ease based on that relaxation of how these adaptogens function, right? Then the Siberian ginseng is another one that gives us the kind of stimulus that we want from the caffeine or the coffee that kicks us into a gear of, oh, I've got some pep in my step, so to speak. So the Siberian ginseng, and then rhodiola is another one that's got this adaptogenic effect of, we see it as this little spark that lights everybody up together, and the adaptogens work really nicely with the superfoods, where you've got also cacao and cordyceps being another energizer, another mycelial mushroom family along with lion's mane. And so then the cacao has the theobromine, which is also more of a stimulus, and it is its own adaptogenic function. So all of them together bring a synastry of what I perceive and experience as this quality of, I'm creating all day. I'm not like stuck in this, got to spike it back up in 2 hours experience.
Right. In a pancake. I'm going to make sure that I give you listening, some folks are just listening and some are watching. I'm going to make sure you get a code so you can get some of these, because I could see people like listening to, there's so many great ingredients in there, and like to think that you could get that in something that's delicious in the morning is pretty epic. Do you ever mix them together?
Oh, totally.
You do? Okay.
In fact, Brian and I both, when we travel, I'll just mix them both together and make this incredible cake where I'm getting the activation of the body, activation of the mind, in one pancake or waffle.
And
basically.
they're low FODMAP, really low in all of the allergens, except for some people are just a coconut, you're saying, right?
Yeah, that'd be the one.
Yeah, coconut's the only there, but otherwise no nuts and none of the top
safe,
8 allergies.
Most people are good with coconut, I'd say.
It's a rare one that we see, but it is one that we disclose. And it's actually been something that's come in and out of the list of the definition of an allergen as a tree nut, because it's a fruit.
Right.
And so that's changed over the years, but currently it is considered a nut, and therefore it is on the list of a top 8 allergen.
Right.
But yeah, so no grains, gluten-free.
Yeah.
It is plant-based, so no eggs needed, no dairy needed.
So you can just whip it with water.
Just water.
Is it better with water or egg? Does egg do something else to it?
Well, you can basically add what you want, and that's kind of one of the
beauty of the pancake.
Yeah, better aspects of it is if you want to throw in hemp milk or regular milk, whatever your jam is. We opted for the plant-based approach, and we opted to make it as convenient as possible. So we have coconut milk powder in the mix, which allows the add water, but still has a creamier quality. But if you want even more creamy, then you add your milk of choice. Yeah.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to take a moment to bring your attention to this incredible company that I found called BioOptimizers, and they have many different products around sleep. One of the things I love that they have is called Magnesium Breakthrough, and many of you have probably, if you've been following my podcast for a while, know how important sleep is. So they have magnesium we've been recommending to our students for a really long time. But what I love about BioOptimizers is they have this magnesium that has all 7 different kinds of magnesium. So when you take one of those, you are just out like a light. So I'm not sure if you struggle with sleep. They have a couple really great sleep products there. So you can go to their website, which is biooptimizers.com. But better, and then I have a code, you can use PG tip at checkout. But what you could do is just look in the show notes here, and you'll go down where it says BioOptimizers, click on that link and just look at what they have. This product I found through Ben Greenfield, but also there's several other people that I really respect along this journey that that use it, that I've been when I saw they were using it, I was like, oh, I have to. My ex-wife Angie and her they love this product as well, and when it's of the highest integrity and quality, so I highly recommend it. And you would be supporting this podcast, so go check that out. And if you have a hard time sleeping, or you know somebody that does, share this with them. Maybe you can help somebody get a really good sleep through this. I don't know if you do this, but just to add a little value for you, getting some really good quality Epsom salts and having an Epsom salt bath every night before bed, dimming your lights, keeping your room dark and cool, stay off your phone a couple hours before bed. Get some good sleep hygiene. So get like a sleep routine. So it might be reading a paper book. Might be doing some light yoga or meditation as you're getting ready for bed, but I find that to be incredibly helpful to prioritize sleep and have good hygiene around sleep. So check that out and just try those things. Those are free. And if you magnesium is just one of those minerals that we are so deficient in, and it does so many things in your body. So you may think you're suffering from anxiety or depression, but you could be missing out on some of these key minerals that are helping to make the environment kind of crappy and giving you those symptoms of anxiety or depression or anxiousness in some way. So check that out. All right, and now back to our conversation here. All right.
I wish that I had, instead of having coffee, because I normally have one coffee in the morning, but this morning I went early to the chiropractor, and then on the way back, Kate's like, "Do you want a coffee?" And like when your love's going to make you a coffee, I felt like a jerk to say no. But I'm struggling the caffeine effect to actually have. I feel fragmented. Like 2's way too much for me. Like 1, I can feel it. It doesn't make me better, but it doesn't make me terrible. But 2, like. It feels my state's altered, my listening's altered, and it's like I have to really work to keep like. And when you're doing a podcast, it would be nice to have your brain actually on the line, not like did I do that? So I don't. Caffeine is not. I don't know why I keep drinking. I think I love the ritual of making it, and it does give a little bit of a jump, but not in the way that I like it. It's not like, if I'm being really honest, it's not. I think I'm just really addicted to the ceremony of and the smell and the story of the bean and grinding it and like the watching the crema on it and like smelling it, and I think there's just a romance to it.
Sure.
That but if I'm being totally like present with my body, it doesn't make me better.
Yeah.
And there are ways too, if you're looking at it like for an off ramp, say from I'm a coffee everyday kind of guy to I'd like to ease myself off of that. Adaptogens do wonders to help the nervous system relax. So there is a quality of, let's say you added ashwagandha, chaga is another one, is a mushroom that do serve to support the body and relaxation, but also the bacopa and the gotu kola as well. You can kind of find your way into weaving out of that caffeine, because it does fragment the thought processes and the brain pattern or brain waves. It's an incredible thing to understand and recognize and go, wait a second.
What's that book? I got to read it.
Yeah, Why We Sleep.
Okay.
I listened to it on Audible as well.
Okay,
it's
I'm going to tag it in the
phenomenal.
show notes because that's another really great resource, I think. Why We Sleep.
Yeah.
There's that James Nestor book called Breathe. That's really phenomenal.
Exceptional.
You've read that as well. Yeah,
same.
we all breathe. We're all big mouth breathers. When you start breathing with your nose, it's just there's a few podcasts I've found on him. I didn't read his whole book. I've read parts of it. It's a fascinating book that I think my listeners would really love as well. So
I was a heavy caffeine consumer for a while, heavy coffee drinker.
You were?
Yeah, absolutely. And in the banking world where hours are just, the demand is so high, so like at any point in time, you're like, I need to stretch my day, I need to get the most out of my day. And I'd convinced myself for a while that was it, but always crashed so hard. So it became had to replenish the cycle, with more coffee. And I would try tea. Tea's great, like I would drink green tea. But then when I found mushrooms really were, okay, I don't need caffeine anymore.
Wow.
I don't need coffee.
Yeah.
And
so
that
neither
was
of you drink
massive.
coffee?
Blue Moon.
Intermittently, very seldomly.
I'm not going to claim that I never have
Yeah.
it, but there are
Right, but
moments
it's
when I
not
enjoy
like-
it in the
it's
same
not a
way.
part of your-
It's not a ritual for
It
me.
doesn't.
Not a
It's not
morning.
your fuel that gets you going in the day.
Precisely.
Yeah, it's seldom.
Yeah, I mean, I was just on a set for a couple months and watched the crew. They are drinking coffee nonstop, and they look exhausted.
Yeah.
And cigarettes. It's almost like the mixture of nicotine and caffeine. It's like maybe elevate something for a moment, but it's like it does not look sustainable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the taxing, on the body and body's organs as well. If you're not hydrating well, the way which can impact your kidneys. And
How many
otherwise.
cups of water? I've heard as much as 6 cups of water one coffee takes to replenish the amount of dehydration. That's the high end. I've also heard people say 2, but
Wow, I hadn't even perceived
6.
it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's most folks just plow caffeine all day without drinking water.
Without drinking water. Yeah.
Well, this is I'm stoked that you guys came up with this. And so, what is the magic that brought you both together to do this?
Yeah, well, you brought in plant medicine as a functional tool for both of us in our individual lives and healing and bringing us to our more authentic selves. And we were on a retreat on the Big Island of Hawaii, and in that space of working together in that kind of sacred healing way, we had this one night where there was just a need for some more medicine to be brewed, and we ended up landing at that place at midnight. He was already there alone. There were supposed to be 2 people, and he and I, in a retreat like that, you tend to be more insular and less social and engaged, but we had this opportunity for 3 hours of just brewing medicine and talking and deepening what became a clear brotherhood in that short window of time. And then 2 weeks later, after that retreat, I was out in Joshua Tree at our mutual friends and was making pancakes the next morning, as I do. And he was like, "You're serious about bringing these to the world, right?" And I said, "Look, I've got, my graphic novel. I've got a full practice. I don't even know where this is all going to fit in, and it's so many moving parts that are not my forte." And he's just like instantly, without another hesitation, just call Brian. Light bulb on. I'm calling him on my way home. We're having a great drop in. He's on the mainland within a couple of weeks. And so that was March. And in April, we were reformulating, taking out the flours that had grains like brown and white rice flour, taking out the eggs, replacing it with arrowroot and chia as a way to kind of find how do we make this plant-based. And so he and I together, which is a fun story. I'll let Brian tell it, because we had this full week of like really discovering how detrimental for us, at least, and we believe for many, grains are on the digestive process. And so that was where we came into V 2.0 together after we found our way into this like sacred brotherhood and partnership of what is now Living Prana.
Yeah. And one of the beautiful things about this being our offering, our creation in the world, is that we do eat pancakes and waffles every day, which is incredible. Rewind back in spring of last year after we met, and we got together for formulation, and we were eating the V1 version of these pancakes, and after 5 days, both of us were incredibly sick, like bloated, constipated, you name it, like couldn't do it, the whole thing, it was a mess. And we looked at each other, and I remember saying, "Ryan, I don't feel good. And we want to have a product in the world that people can eat safely and healthily every single day.
And feel great.
And feel great doing it.
Yeah.
And so happened to have just been our own personal experience, but it was identical. And we were so inflamed. We were so uncomfortable. And so we're like, okay, this is already gluten-free, so it's not the gluten. And then we start feeling and looking into grains. And I was like looking at the flours that were there. And he had modeled the V1 off of a brand of a pancake mix that he liked. Which, with the options that have been in the world, that was the leading one at the time. But we saw that opportunity then to basically functionally reboot the entire baking mix offering. Mm-hmm. And that grains were a massive source of discomfort and dishealth for so many people. So immediately researching, trial and error, we tested dozens of grain-free and gluten-free flours, alternative flours, to find the right texture, the right consistency. Again, beauty of being in this business, we ate a lot of pancakes.
Right. And didn't you find mold in one of the things that you were looking in, like in one of your grains, you had said in one of your batches way back when you were preparing it, I vaguely remember you, and I want to get into, you have a really incredible mold story that I want to get into for our listeners to become aware of the possibility of mold toxicity in the home. But it also shows up in food storage, right?
It does, yeah. We've had, you have to get your food tested when you go into production and post-production, and even then testing against shelf life to understand where is bacteria present and growing in a direction that it doesn't need to, and or we don't want it to. And we never really encountered mold as a direct, we can't use this because of that, but keeping a consistent eye on that is definitely relevant.
Right.
Yeah. And just to take advantage of the segue into the mold story. And for me, as far as what Living Prana is doing, not just with pancakes, but where we have a vision for a lot more healthier for you, replacing the indulgent foods like pancakes that we all enjoy. But
so this is just a starting point for you guys in terms of Like this is your first offering of product, but there's going to be other delicious, tasty things that you're offering through Living Prana, right?
Correct. Yeah. This is where we're starting as our flagship, and then developing more products as we speak. And so, but for me, functional foods, the idea that food is medicine, dates way back to Hippocrates. And I have my own personal story of where I was infested with mold and was, according to the acupuncturist who finally diagnosed me, he said I should be dead. Like, you shouldn't be alive. You should have already basically either shut down or lost your mind enough. And I did have suicidal ideations without any real understanding as to why and what that was about. And I lived in a house for about 2.5 years that, unbeknownst to me, was infested with black mold. And it was this little guest house, and there was a whole water heater issue that I had no, knowledge of until I moved. And even then, when I saw the black mold, it didn't quite register. I just didn't have any knowledge of what black mold is or does to the human nervous system, and to understand, how mold is a very significant problem around the world, but especially if you live in more tropical or moist environments. But I've discovered more and more there are other environments where mold thrives. This is a mycelial network, which is like very strong, and we have the benefits of functional mushrooms in our pancakes as the kind of, I guess, like the good witch, bad witch side of what a mycelial network can be. But for me, it shut my system to a place of my kidneys were so taxed and my hair was falling out like leaps and bounds, and it didn't make any sense. I was virtually going crazy. And it wasn't until this acupuncturist broke it down for me and gave me a real strong understanding of how these mycotoxins get released and the spores and how they are breathed into our body and then begin to overtake it. And it takes over the nervous system. So our body's basically in a heightened state of sympathetic fight, flight, more of a stress state. And the reason for that is it's thriving. It's actually getting its own nourishment from our state of imbalance. And then to understand how to approach it with foods, for example, I was doing a lot of very strong Chinese herbs at the time as well. I found my way to to finding, taking out the nightshades, taking out things that are going to feed this network, getting rid of the candida, things like that this was just supporting a state of imbalance in my body, and finding out what FODMAP was, and finding out, like, there are ways to nourish my body that's going to not keep feeding this situation that is otherwise, overtaking me. And it took about a year of deep acupuncture and herbs to finally get through the state where I was like, whoa, I'm no longer feeling crazy. And then the big one for me to round it all the way out to back to plant medicine was combo. It's for those who don't know, combo is a layer of the skin of an Amazonian frog that has no predators because it has a poisonous kind of exterior skin. But when you take that, in a safe, sustainable way from a frog, and then you actually burn that little holes on the body, little like a little moxa, or it's like incense, just to break the skin. You apply that on after drinking a lot of water, and you begin to purge. And this poison doesn't just clear out the water that you put in before you do it, but it also clears out the toxins. And for me, having my brain come back online was one of the most extraordinary experiences, because I didn't realize the social anxiety I was experiencing and my more like just very resistant to situations that previous to the mold were never a problem, but during it were just an absolute nightmare.
Man, how many people do you think are affected by mold in some way? I know our pediatrician is like not the majority, but he was every single child. He even when a child has a reaction to a vaccine, it's usually their mold exposure that makes them so susceptible to the vaccine reaction. So our pediatrician wasn't like against vaccines for kids; he was against mold.
That's fascinating. I didn't know this.
He's the one who had us check our house, because we have a new 10-month-old, and we live by the beach, and it's like, to understand, and it can interrupt their nervous system and their immune system so much that when you then put in another something that's quite toxic, or a vaccine in that way, it can send some kids over the line into where they will have developmental issues. And it's not, he said, it's not necessarily just the vaccines. That's the danger for young kids. It's how many of them are exposed to mold, and how their systems can't handle even a little bit of black mold.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, like, how do people get help? Like, I want my listeners and viewers to actually, how do people take action with this? Like, I know there's probably very expensive ways, but is there like a couple gateways in here for health? Because I feel like it's really important to understand.
I'm in total agreement. I'll say that, I had the good fortune of being diagnosed by a practitioner who's in, Eastern medicine. And there are ways you can have your blood drawn, and it can be tested. You can find out what your system is holding. So that's probably the easiest and
a blood
fastest.
test for mold exposure.
Correct.
You can do that.
I believe so, yes. I didn't do that personally, but that's my understanding from others I've spoken to. And then there's also, having your space checked. And you can even get, and I don't know how reliable they are, so I can't speak to it, but you can get like an at-home test and find out what the mold count is.
Spores and
yeah. So those are two simple things, but the thing, and I would say, is like understanding where the symptoms of, if you do feel like overstressed or even overstressed by situations that might otherwise not warrant that level of reaction, or just feeling a level of social anxiety. I mean, that's, if we look at our nervous system, and there are more influences than just mold, but there's unresolved trauma, and there's other elements of how we can approach healing in general, but mold in particular, as we're talking about it, it does inform a sense of discomfort or dis-ease relative to our basically our resting comfort level. And if you're feeling like, well, I'm in a state of stress and I don't have any just cause or any external influence on this, then chances are there's something to look at internally. Let's just put it that way, in a larger
maybe
bandwidth.
too much coffee.
It may be.
I swear, a lot of anxiety comes from too much caffeine, and then you throw mold in there, or you throw other stimulants that, and then you throw like the drugs that are given to folks that with anxiety or depression or any of those, and the symptoms and the side effects of a lot of that medication is way worse than what you're dealing with as a It's
a very slippery slope, and it does look, if you look at the biochemistry of even we're using back to like the brain foods, not to keep tying it back to this, but the idea is that if we in our mission envision him, in his own coming to, wow, I want to actually do more than what his corporate position at the time was really affording him. How do we put something in our body or put something in the world that people can put in their body and suddenly have a sense of relaxation or nourishment that they're not getting elsewhere? And it became far bigger than us in terms of a mission than just, I made these superfood pancakes at Burning Man, and it was out of necessity because I didn't have a blender but wanted my smoothie and threw it in a pancake, and here it is. To then go, wait, actually, if we can put something in our body that sets the tone for our day in a more positive way than, say, the spike or the heavy sugar and the things that are just basically throwing our physiology into a need to process more than it will benefit from, but then the mental health impact that has, and the two are, absolutely connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Food being medicine. I'm really glad that you guys are doing this, as to, and I'm a huge proponent and huge advocate for your food. Like it's a way of nurturing yourself. And I feel like when you become present to what you're putting in your body, but it's, everyone's so different. It's so bio-individual. Like certain grains can make some people feel okay, and others, it is the end of the world, like for them. So it's just like, it is such it's so bio-individual. I'm studying at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition for my functional medicine coaching degree. And it's really cool. Their main focus is bio-individual. It's like, and because there's so many things contradicting themselves inside of this world of food, of health food, of medicine, of nutrition. Even is like there is the vegans versus the like keto, bacon eaters. Like, and you could never find a point of agreement between them. Of course. Some people, that heavy animal fat will make them feel like they are unstoppable, and others will make them feel like crap. Like it's so important to really be able to feel what your food is, how it's making you feel. Like to be present enough to go, when I eat that, I feel more tired, or like you guys did when you were testing these out. Like, okay, we feel like crap. Yeah, we need to adjust the ingredients.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we touch in on your 65-pound weight loss in 6 months? Because I think like not only are people going to have a chance to eat some yummy waffles and pancakes, but if folks can get their mold under at least the awareness of what they might be living with, but to release 65 pounds in 6 months, how and what, and just take us back. And how long ago was this?
It was about a little over 6 years ago.
Okay. And what was the main catalyst? Like, had you always been heavy?
I'd struggled with weight on and off in my life, but never to that level.
Okay.
And so if you were to really rewind it back, because we're talking about food as medicine, I grew up in a household that really didn't instill healthy eating habits.
Right.
And growing up in New Jersey, where the Italian food, the bagels, the cream cheese, like all that stuff, anyone who spends time in New York, you know how great those are. But
cannolis.
Those were staple. And cannolis. I loved cannolis. Staples in our diet, because it was a process of food being comfort, right? And that is medicine within itself, right? Food that, like, okay, you're embracing this and you're coming together. So that was early in my life. And then it wasn't until after college that I was self-taught, did my own research around developing healthy eating habits and my workout routine, and was cooking at home a lot, really cleaned up my diet. And that worked for me for a very long time. But what it couldn't withstand was stress. And what I saw was that stress derailed every healthy habit I put together in my life.
Okay, I think we almost need to pause there, because like not only like food is bio-individual, but you nailed it. Like you can't eat well enough if like there's no way you could take care of yourself well enough if you don't manage your stress. Like your stress is the wet blanket or the fart in a car. I'm just about any attempt.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
And okay, so why were you so stressed out?
It was coming from all angles. So at the time, I was in the corporate world working with a team that was creating a lot of stress. I really felt that disconnect between the impact I wanted to leave on the world and what I was doing professionally was really peaking.
Yeah.
And really had no cohesion within the people I was working with. So the dynamic intrapersonally was really, there was a ton of friction. And it was really taxing on me, like expecting me to be on call 24/7. And it was really, really, really taxing. So there was that, and I was feeling like, what am I doing with my life? So the stressors of the deals and the acquisitions life and all of that. And then on top of that, the relationships. And then speaking of relationships, I got engaged for all the wrong reasons.
Okay.
At the same time. So I was engaged. I called the wedding off 30 days before the date was going to happen.
That's brutal.
Invitations were out, deposits were there.
That's terrifying.
And so I, 32 at the time, and had, for people all outside of myself, I allowed myself to be convinced that there was something wrong with me because I hadn't gotten married yet and I was 32. And so started then shifting my mindset. Is there something wrong with me? Maybe there is something wrong with me, because what I've done previously has not led me to an outcome where I was grown up conditioned thinking it was family, kids at an early age. But that never really personally resonated with me. So I was almost trying to build this life that wasn't truly intended for me.
Right.
And so went down this path. It was a short engagement, but everything there was screaming into me, starting to see signs, this is wrong. Wrong for me. And I was doing it for everybody else except for myself.
And was the weight just piling on?
Weight was piling on. So I then am in this place. It's this nightmare spiral of where the stress is crushing your confidence. It's really pulling down all of my energy at the time. Like, it showed up everywhere in my life. It was not just while I was working. It was not just while I was relating with my partner at the time. Everything I did was impacted. And I got to a point, I had a lot of days where I didn't want to get out of bed. Like, I wouldn't go as far as to say I was clinically depressed, but it was as low energy, low motivated for life as I've ever been. And all of this was compounding and feeding itself in a really vicious way. So it was actually through that engagement that I hired a personal trainer for the first time in my life. And, seeing myself, because like physically I was so out of shape, and I was like, this will really help. And it did. It was great. It brought some awareness. I was lifting on my own, but I really didn't like doing cardio. And that started to bring a little bit of a pep back into my step of like, I want to get back to taking care of myself.
So just hiring a trainer, going to the gym was sort of the thing that started the momentum.
Woke me up. And then what I realized in first talking with him and then doing some more research was my diet was worse than poor. My diet was horrendous. And it was because that was a coping mechanism for me to leave the stress at bay.
Right.
And so I started looking at this, and things that I pull out were really things that were creating the most inflammation for me. So dairy, refined sugar, and refined carbs. And refined carbs are closely tied to grains. So eliminating those at the time was at least for the first 20 pounds. I look at the 65 as really kind of 3 stages of 20-ish. For that first 20, what melted away was pulling those things out of my life.
Wow.
And it just, like that, my body responded immediately. And dairy, I don't really do absolutes in my life. Dairy is as close to 1 at this point in time. I tried to minimize it as much as I can because I realized, for me, bio-individually, how inflaming it is.
Yeah.
And I was so used to it after so many years that I didn't know that it was sabotaging my health so much. And so then that now come full circle, and this really hit me when we launched our, this was Memorial Day weekend, we were at Lightning in a Bottle, and giving a talk. There's 100-something people there, and we were serving pancakes, and our best friend Sanjay's, doing some music in the background, but talking about the origin story, talking about the why, talking about superfoods and functional mushrooms. And what clicked for me was this, for me personally, this is a platform to share my story and my experience. And that most of what we've pulled out of the reboots of these products is what saved my health and allowed me to make that turnaround.
Right.
The no dairy, the grains are a massive part of it with the inflammation. And while it's so bio-individual, there's a lot of studies that show grains cause inflammation in a lot of people, or at least inflammation is the source of a majority of chronic disease.
Yeah.
And so we can work from there, and whether or not it has the same impact on people, that's why we give this option and provide this option. But finding that personal tie, going all the way back to what I was talking about with Tulum, of that dissonance between my profession and my life personally, all of it was in this perfect weave immediately. I was like, this is it. This is the way. This is a vessel for me to share that healing with the world. And for years until then, I really didn't think it was interesting enough for people to want to listen or hear it. And then I started to see that so many people struggle with stress-related dishealth and letting go of their physical health and really just letting the reins go.
Right.
And so...
And managing stress with food, in a sense, with comfort food.
As that response and that management mechanism. Yeah, absolutely. And so...
how did the other 40 pounds melt away? So how did... In 6 months. In 6 months, you lost 65 pounds.
6 months. Yeah.
So the trainer started it. Then you removed all the inflammatory foods and dairy and sugars.
Yeah. And the third piece of it was sleep. And I never in my life up until this transition valued my sleep. I was very much coming up in the area of which I did, and in the finance world, it was go, 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 productivity at all costs. I'll sleep when I can. And I then now started to value, the body needs to regenerate.
Right.
And it needs to rest.
Right.
So bringing sleep in as that last pillar was probably in the third trimester, but the third phase, the third chapter, was what helped get me over, because I did, there were little plateaus, and then some tweak had to happen to then keep the progress going.
Yeah.
Sleep was the final chapter.
Wow.
And seeing that and valuing the quality and quantity of sleep. Quantity started for me. When I moved to Hawaii, it was more quality as the improvement. So, and with that, total response on stress. The more you're regulating your sleep, at least for me, I've found that I'm waking up refreshed, I'm feeling recharged. I stay more balanced during the day when I'm mindful and thoughtful about the consistency and regularity of my sleep. Yeah. So it's not just getting 8 hours, but it's having that okay, is it 10 to 6 kind of thing, and trying to stay in that window. Yeah. And being mindful of practices before and after. What are you doing for the hour, 2 hours before bedtime? Yeah. When are you cutting off eating? Because digestion while you're sleeping is a big thing that can disrupt the quality of your sleep. Yeah. So I started working that in as well, whether it was a 6:30 or 7 p.m. cutoff for all food. And allow my body the time to process before going to bed. Right. And then waking up, and regularly, Ryan and I both do some version of intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
But for me, it was more on the front end of how are you setting yourself up for successful sleep, and that continues to be a big part of the focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sleep is one, I feel like sleep is one of the most profound healers. That it regulates your hormones. It does so many things for your metabolism, recovery of your organs and mood. There's just, it's sexual function, everything. It's like when it's tricky with a baby to get unbroken sleep.
Of course.
It's like, so you have to like really work on the quality instead of the quantity, and try to keep your room cold and dark. Like
cold. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a data geek, and I grew up in a world by numbers. My mom was a math teacher, but so what helped me really understand this was when I got my first Apple Watch, and I started wearing it when I sleep. And so they track, sleep scores, heart rate variability, and your resting heart rate. Mm-hmm. And then I would see on nights where, let's say, I would drink alcohol versus not drink alcohol, and how my HRV would respond significantly.
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, like it would be chaos. It would be like the spider with the caffeine
for your heart rate variability.
Heart rate variability, drinking alcohol at night. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
For me.
Yeah. Well, it's probably for everyone. I'm sure alcohol affects the quality of your sleep and the way in your heart rate, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. So those are some really, I love those kind of tools for releasing weight, because it's repeatable. Like you can remove things that are inflammatory. You can move your body. And I think people should hire a trainer to get an idea of how to actually safely train, so they don't injure yourself. And then prioritizing things like sleep and hydration, it's all free.
That's the thing.
A trainer isn't, but you can go on YouTube and find a trainer. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot that you can. Removing foods actually saves money. Fasting, intermittent fasting.
Totally.
So do you guys? We're going to wrap this up shortly. I want to just quickly touch how does this? It's an aggressive segue, but how? It's a hard turn.
A hard pivot.
But it's here in front of me. And it actually looks really good with those cakes right next to each other. How does this book? I've read it to my son, not the whole book. Wow. I've sit there because it's so colorful. Let's see, is this one in the cat? It's so colorful, and that he loves it. Austin will look at this and I go through some of the sexy pages. It's not that, like, there's a page where I think there's might be a topless dude or something.
It's pretty PG.
It's pretty PG.
A little PG-13 here.
PG-13 on the PG-13 pages.
Yes.
But those are the pages he likes. He's 10 months old. But so tell me, how does this book come, and does it fit in anything you guys are doing together, or is this a solo thing for you?
This is something that I conceived of back in 2004. Uh-huh. I met my writing partner in 2005 and kind of ran it by him, and it's been 17 years of development and process of multiple iterations of a hero's journey that I had a dream about that woke me up in the middle of the night, and I had to jot it down. And, this has seen a great deal of transformation, as I think our planet has. And that's kind of what it was always designed to be, was this vehicle for telling the story of our planet's evolution and all the different prophecies from different traditions and lineages. And, my writing partner and I have been working together in more of a mystery school setting called The Fourth Way, a Gurdjieffian framework. And so this became our vehicle for self-remembering. And so going through what any writer would describe as, the hero's journey or the writer's journey, where you're going to face all your demons and face all the doubts and face all the the villainous energies of getting yourself through moments of not feeling creative or feeling like you're on the right track with what you're trying to both ultimately birth out of nowhere or out of nothing. And so anyway, this doesn't really associate with Brian and I directly, other than, the relevant need for developing the skill sets to create that were not parallel necessarily with how to run a business or all the mergers, acquisitions, and finance background that Brian has. Right. So, for me, it's a creative process. I think life more or less, if I was going to come back to my original bio, who I am is just, it's a creative journey that I choose to let what my consciousness pulls me towards. And in this case, that was a very substantial amount of time, but it was always with a purpose more around a self-realized opportunity to face aspects of myself that I wouldn't if I didn't take on a project like that.
Right.
As well, bring a lot of information and knowledge that I, like you, and my Saturn return just got really, I was just like, I wanted to learn more, I wanted to read more, I wanted to understand more and comprehend reality and the human psyche and all the things. And this kind of became an amalgamation of all that learning and desire to create into what is the first in a series of books that are called The Medicine Gate, and it's also a board game, it's also a video game and a film. We wrote the screenplay first and then adapted it into a graphic novel in kind of reverse order of how the world tends to work in entertainment. And yeah, it was just, for me, it was a labor of love and a labor of learning. Like, wow, if I'm going to accumulate knowledge, let's see if we can apply it in a way that give something back and not just sit with it.
Yeah.
And that kind of, there's a story to tell. Let's see if we can do it creatively.
It's really cool. It's really beautifully illustrated and it's stunning. It's the colors are so yeah, this is great.
Yeah, Novo Malgapo, our artist, was
incredible.
A huge find, and it was this process in a way, to tie it back in, any entrepreneurial effort, you're going to hit so many no's and so much resistance, and it's like, how do you meet that? And within the fourth way, you're always reconciling resistance is kind of the mindset. And so to go through a process of bringing that to life took an enormous level of getting out of my own way in moments, or having to stand strong in what I really, really saw was the right path. And that artist was one that was not available, but we made sure that we got the artist we knew we needed to bring this, and he added so much to our story. So Mac is my writing partner, Mac McCrary, and his name's Novo Malgapo, and just to work with brilliant humans is also, and that's also part of it, what a training ground to then work with another brilliant human and have the opportunity to be like, I've worked a lot of edges of where that's not comfortable through, to be able to do it with greater ease. I would say that's probably the best benefit it's brought forth,
Yeah, I mean, so much of life is just getting out of your own way and then having a community or a team that you can have a shared vision, like to bring things into the world that actually makes life better for other people. I mean, it's the key to enjoying your life is find something that not just lights you up, but is a big service. Like, because if you can find that magic of something that you can wake up and be excited about, and knowing that it's actually bringing medicine to other people and making a difference for others, that's I feel that's what you guys have with this too. It's like, it's so important to people start their day with something that can make them feel good, rather than just a bag of turds. Starting their day off feeling like awful, or starting your day off feeling like you've got the spider web of a beautiful mind that's actually working for you.
Totally.
So before we wrap this up, best advice that you ever got? Brian first.
Best advice I ever got was actually from my father. And he said to me at an early age, don't sweat the small stuff, and everything is small stuff.
I love that. Just don't sweat anything. Okay, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
come back to that often in times of pressure, high performance, whatever it may be, things going as we don't expect.
Yeah.
And I say that out loud, and it brings me back to
don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
What about you?
Well, I'll piggyback on the fatherly advice that I received as well, and to tie it in with the pancakes too. My father was my hero because he made pancakes every Saturday, and I've always loved pancakes, and I've always loved giving and serving pancakes. So it became a company out of like that origin story as a child. And he threw me the John Lennon line that there are no problems, only solutions. And to have that mindset when it appears to be an enormous problem, like there's a solution. That's what's here. If I just have to see it, tune into it. So I'll go with a John Lennon father hybrid piece of advice. Yeah.
I love it. Well, guys, this has been really, really cool. We're going to go into the kitchen now, and we're going to whip up some of these puppies, and then we're going to shoot a little bit of footage and going to share just a little bit of our how easy they are to make, but also we're going to, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions in there too, just on what's your favorite thing to put on them. And but it's been really awesome. How do people find you guys? First of all, and if they want to follow your journey, if they want to buy these, if they want to pick up the Medicine Gate, and how do they stay connected to what you guys are doing?
So Instagram is where we're most regularly communicating with our audience. So it's living_Prana.
Okay.
Is where you can find us. My personal Instagram, bmurphy22a.
Okay.
And a lot of communication through there. We have email newsletters as well that we're doing. So you can check us out there. Our website, livingprana.co, not .com.
Okay.
It's what the new age cool kids are doing, I guess, with the new startups.
We're trying to be new age cool kids. We're trying.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where we are most frequently communicating. You can follow our journey. We're posting a lot around events and product info and things that we're bringing into the world.
Yeah, I can't wait to find out hear about what other products you guys have.
We've got some fun things we've been working on.
Yeah.
My most recent trip here, so we're excited.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because you normally spend your time in Hawaii.
Yes. The last year it's been back and forth, maybe a 60-40 split with just getting the business off the ground. But yeah it's still been home. So.
Yeah. Oh, so jealous. It's so great. And what about where can people find you? Same living_Prana.
Yeah, definitely there. And my Instagram is Ryan Scott Seaman, SEAMAN. Ryan and Scott are the basic spellings. And then themedicinegate.com. You can you can get an ebook or a hard copy, and you can email me, Ryan@themedicinegate.com or Ryan@livingprana.co, and
great.
I'll respond as quickly as I'm able with all the time that I have,
all the
which
free
is
time.
abundant.
Right,
I have all the time I need.
You're telling yourself is that their time is it's really made up time, isn't it? Like we have these, we've been told that it's in this segments of whatever, but it's really just made up.
It really is. It's superfluous.
When there's people who are just really in their flow, that does seem like time doesn't even exist for them. It's just like, and then there's some people that never have enough time. It's just like it's a construct of our caffeine fragmented minds. I feel like
totally.
As for these babies, they are available through our website. Prana.co. We'll be making a bigger push into retail stores.
Okay.
Top of the year, but as of right now, primarily through our website.
Great. And I'll be providing a code in the show notes here so people can get a discount and also get a chance to check them out. And well, this is great. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. Thank you for being here, and everybody who's listening. Make sure you check these out. If you love having pancakes, but you stopped because they make you feel like turds, this is, here you go. You're welcome.
Turd-free pancakes right here, ladies and gentlemen.
Until soon. Okay, so what are we doing here, gentlemen?
Well, so we're taking our mix, right? Just a straight mix.
Yeah.
Just adding it together. This already has some water in it. Now we're just adding a little bit more.
And that's all you have to do is add water.
Just add water. This is the Prana cake.
Just like it says. Okay.
Adding water right over here.
Okay. Living water, living water to living
Prana, just like the bag. So the batter is green. Spirulina is one of the superfoods that we use in the Prana cake on the activating your body, and the amount of nutrition, the amino acids, pound for pound. One of the healthiest substances on the planet.
Okay, so we're adding banana.
We're adding banana. So what we've found, from a taste perspective, is that the combination of banana. Put the rest of it in. The combination of banana, spirulina, and cacao. Cacao, which is in both of our mixes, but spirulina just in the Prana cake. That trifecta really unlocks a beautiful flavor. So as people like the banana pancake experience, we tend to lead with the banana Prana cake.
Okay.
Pancake or waffle experience.
Indeed, we do.
Yeah.
What about other like raspberries and those things?
Just blueberries, walnuts. We find walnuts are great with the brain cakes. It's also a grain food unto itself, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the fats in the walnut we like a lot, and these things also are an amazing savory dish. You can make a pancake, a waffle, top it with avocado, olive oil. You can throw in any kind of savory
Really?
elements you want. Yeah, it's a bread
Cheese?
replacement. Oh yeah.
You put cheese in it.
I mean, we don't do dairy personally, but you certainly can.
absolutely.
You certainly can. We're not gonna stop you. We're not gonna stop you.
But
Okay,
so
all right.
what I've done is I'll make mushroom tacos very often, and you play with the water ratio. You can actually thin it out to a tortilla-like, or you can actually make it thicker like a brioche open-faced sandwich. And so I'll saute up some mushrooms and onions and do like a macadamia nut spread or some kind of nut
So
spread.
you can
or
use this
hummus.
as a bread replacement.
That is a
No
big thing about what we're
kidding.
doing. The hashtag break up with bread is a movement that's starting right here and right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Break up with bread hashtag. All right.
Why break bread when you can break cakes?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right,
That's
yeah,
how we
yeah.
roll.
That's it.
Cake is just funner to say than bread anyway. Bread's a bit of a downer, and cake is like, let's party.
Let's party.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been really fun to experiment with what else we can do, and this whole savory option of coming into.
Yeah.
It's pancakes any time of day.
Right.
Some people have that general like breakfast for dinner, but you can actually make
Yeah.
a savory meal using these as your base.
I could, when my son's hungry, I should just be whipping him this stuff up.
It's so easy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The water.
We're always
stir.
looking for kids. We're always looking. He's going to come in here soon. We're always looking for ways to like get him good quality food, and this is it. Why have I not been using these?
No, you're just waiting for us to show up.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
remind us.
Okay, good.
Perfect timing.
All right, so you just whip it together, and then you guys like using a waffle iron. Do you have to get it hot? Do you need some oil for it?
We did already add oil to
Okay.
our mixes. Thank you. And
Okay.
just adding oil.
Oh, you added oil where?
Heated up the oil and then just added it to the mix itself. You want what the oil does is because the waffle iron's enclosing the cake.
Okay, so you need
it'll dry it out a little bit, but the
Got
oil
it.
keeps it moist. It
Okay.
also makes it crispier. So
What
all
oil
waffle
did you?
irons-
Coconut oil?
Yeah, added coconut oil to
Okay.
here exactly.
Great. So you have ghee. Is ghee what you use to stop it from sticking?
Ghee is what we just love to top it with. You could also use it as you could cook it in ghee, the same as you could in coconut oil if you have a traditional pan. We have the non-stick pancake pan that we like to use. We have the waffle iron. Those don't require a base of like greasing the pan, but most pans do, ceramics, that kind of thing.
Okay.
One thing noteworthy is that stainless steel is not good for any pancake mixes, ours or any others.
Really?
It sticks in a really awful way.
Cast irons too.
What about our cast irons? These seasoned ones. You're telling me I can't use those?
You,
If you have the right
seasoned
oil,
one.
yeah,
You have
yeah,
the
with
seasoned
the
I
one.
think
right oil,
I've done them in there. They
you're
work.
You
probably
have. I've seen you do it.
You
Yeah.
just have to know your heat. Okay, so we have. Which one's the brain cake?
This is the brain cake.
Okay.
Right, so this one has cacao, cordyceps, lion's mane, bacopa, gotu kola, rhodiola, Siberian ginseng. Buckwheat is our base flour. It's gluten-free, grain-free, 100% plant-based.
So you're not going to you're not going to put oil on there. You've already got it in the mix.
Oil's in the mix, exactly. And there is a little oil in this iron. That also is there.
Okay, got it.
Which we like it for the crispy effect, but the...
I'm excited.
yeah.
Okay. Now, could you add sweetener, or wouldn't really need to, or do you add that later?
I mean, coconut sugar is already in the mix.
It is?
Low amount.
Yeah.
Yes, there's coconut sugar. Obviously, maple syrup is a fan favorite when it comes to waffles. That's an easy
Okay.
add after the cooking fact. But what we found, and many people agree, it's almost like it doesn't even need syrup. You know, we've
Okay.
got, especially when you have the bananas in the Prana cakes.
Okay,
Which
great.
here we've got spirulina, cacao, maca, ashwagandha, cordyceps, and sacha inchi.
What's such an inchi?
Well, it's the nickname is the Amazonian peanut. It's not a nut. It actually is a flower, and
Neither are peanuts, to be fair.
fair. It's one of the most commonly used plant-based sources of protein down in South America.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so very
What's it
readily
called?
found. Sacha inchi.
Okay.
SACHAINCHI.
Okay.
It actually looks like a star anise, so almost like a flower bud as you
Okay.
see it. I saw one in the raw for the first time in Hawaii a couple weeks ago, which was amazing.
No way.
We've just been working with the powder, but it's incredibly high protein, high fiber, minerals, vitamins, antioxidants, all of that. So it is one of the top superfoods that is readily found down in the Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's in here.
Yeah, we use Sacha inchi in the.
Is this a
in the
skillet
pancake.
thing you're using? This is
It's a
like
little
another-
pancake pan,
Oh,
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When
gonna get
you're in
Austin.
the game, you figure out all the toys and all
Yeah.
the tools.
Hey, Austin, did you want to come in your chair, buddy? Come check this out. Yeah. Now you're in the picture. Does this feel good over here, buddy? You can see everything? A little bit better? Okay. All right. Thanks, my man. So we're waiting for these guys to cook. And you have maple syrup here.
Red maple
Yes.
syrup,
And ghee to put on top.
almond butter we love as well, and we
We have
forgot
some homemade. We have some homemade pecan almond that we created.
That sounds amazing.
That we made.
That's why we
Wonderful.
forgot it.
That's exactly why we forgot it.
And Kate's mom put a little too much maple syrup in it, so it's like dessert.
So I think, as we're on the conversation of toppings,
Yes.
we love them.
We love them very much.
You guys are mostly done. You can use wooden there if you want, if you'd rather. Not special. I'm gonna rinse off a few of these guys. Oh, that's a lot. Let's rinse them.
Yeah, so many parents are like, I'm just dying to get my kids to get some, real nutrition into their
Oh my gosh.
lives,
yeah.
and this is a beautiful way of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, buddy.
Pancakes coming.
Pancakes and waffles. Pancakes and waffles in the house.
Pancakes.
Midday waffles.
There it is.
Found it. Nice.
Okay.
Perseverance usually wins.
It's a mix of almond and pecan. But it'll be yummy. He loves just eating it. What's it like?
Yum.
Yeah.
So good.
Okay.
Pancakes have completed. The waffles take a little bit longer.
What do you think, buddy? Can't believe you've had these sitting here, but we haven't fed you waffles or pancakes.
Waiting for the truth.
You do ghee, yeah?
We do the.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I recommend.
Yeah, a lot with this, as that was one of the questions we got early was, are you defeating the purpose because at the end of the day, pancakes are something that people, douse in maple syrup and butter and all of this. Like,
Yeah.
Are you really creating health through putting a pancake into the world? And so we had this opportunity of recalibrating conscious topping.
Yeah.
And how you think about, nut butters, fruits,
Yeah.
and even like when you're using maple syrup, it's a drizzle, not a dousing. And
Sure.
doing something that's organic and it's not laden with all additives.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
not
doing things.
Jemima's
Yeah,
maple syrup.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Natural maple syrup, a little on the side, dip it for flavor. You don't need to saturate like you said.
I mean, you could mash up raspberries and put it on there with we have also, what he loves is, or the, if like you guys don't do dairy, but it's yogurt, just like a Greek style yogurt
Yeah.
with a whack of that on it, if you guys were eating dairy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, we'll do coconut yogurt as
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Exactly.
I was doing we covered a retreat in Hawaii right after I'd gotten back called Heaven on Earth. And we sponsored 2 breakfasts there. My friend Spencer, who was leading chefing, I was co-chefing with him. I was making hundreds of pancakes in the morning, and he was making some high vibe creations for toppings. And so used the coconut milk
Yeah.
yogurt, and then took dragon fruit, pitaya, and mashed up and made this really vibrant pink coconut yogurt topping. It was like whipped.
Oh man.
Oh,
I bet it was.
it was so
I
good.
bet it was so good.
Yeah, so but taking fruit and combining it into a yogurt is an amazing way to top. Because fruit's all the sweetness we need.
I mean, it's hard to find candy that is as sweet as fruit. We just get used, like kids get used to like how I don't know. I guess the programming around candy and treats, right? You can put some Himalayan salt on this. And,
Oh yeah.
all right. So
Which we do have Himalayan pink salt is also part of both of our mixes as well.
is it inside it?
Yeah, we got a little bit of salt in the mix.
Well, I might put a little bit of the Greek yogurt on mine. Would that be offensive to you guys?
This is your pancake experience.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
allowed to-
That is the bio-individual. Make
There
it
we go.
yours. We encourage that.
You ready, bud?
So, how was that? Wasn't that a great conversation? And it was cool. What was so different about this podcast is we shot it at my house, different angles, had to figure out different microphones, and then we shot in my kitchen, showing you how we did that. So I hope you really enjoyed this. If you did, please subscribe and share and like and all that stuff, and go check out some of the Living Prana pancakes. Make sure you use my code, and I will be seeing you really soon. Check out the Grass is Greener podcast on Apple iTunes. If you enjoyed this, please give that a shout and follow that. So I release on Apple Podcasts first, and then about a week later I drop this video so people can have the conversation 2 ways if they want it. All right, until I see you, remember to be kind and gentle and tender and loving to yourself in your thoughts on purpose. And remember to enjoy this life. Bye.